Welcome to the seventh episode of the Pre-Health Purple Hawk podcast, brought to you by Pre-Health Advising at Hunter College. My name is Isaiah Keynes, and I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Juliet Prieto, a current OB/GYN provider. Dr. Prieto graduated from Macaulay Honors College at Hunter in 2015, graduated from Indiana University School of Medicine in 2020, and completed her OB/GYN residency at Flushing Hospital Medical Center in 2024. She will now be going to North Carolina to work as a general OB/GYN. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me, Isaiah.
Yes. Let's get started right away. So I usually start these interviews with the most interviewee question that most medical doctors, medical students, residents have ever really seen. What inspired you to pursue a career in medicine?
Yes, I've been answering this question since I got to since I started medical school interviews but I mean, my family is Puerto Rican and Guatemalan. I was born in New York, and I was inspired by my grandma. She was an orphan from Guatemala, and she was always very interested in being a midwife, but she didn't have the funds. So growing up, she'd always talk about the amazing career a midwife was, and we'd watch a bunch of shows on. She loved the Animal Planet, so we would watch all the birthing shows on Animal Planet. And I think just learning a lot about women's health care, learning a lot about reproduction in animals as well, and seeing the disparities there are in healthcare for people from minority backgrounds. All of that shaped why I wanted to become an OB/GYN.
Great. Yeah, I mean that's something that not a lot of people really talk about. Is how minorities are represented in medicine. So I mean, yeah, I mean that's amazing that was really. I mean that's really good reason to pursue a career in medicine. And there are still, I mean, still to this day, there's a lot of disparities in the medical field, but hopefully, you can contribute to solving that. Yeah.
I mean, it's been nice because I'm fluent in Spanish. I grew up speaking Spanish, so I've been able to see firsthand now how just understanding the language can really change healthcare and make patients feel a lot more comfortable. And I remember going to doctor's visits with my grandma and just seeing the difficulties she was having. I mean, I was sometimes her translator, but I was young. I didn't understand things. So when your provider can actually just speak the language, I think it really helps care.
No, yes, that's very true. I mean, I've been to the ER many times and seen the importance of having a translator and interpreter there, and having your medical provider have that skill set already is super important, and it's definitely something that should be highlighted even more amongst the medical community. So thank you for your service in that way. Getting to where you are now has been, I'm assuming, a tough and long journey. And it all started applying to medical school, really, and that all started in undergrad, right here at Hunter. So I wanted to ask, how was your journey applying to medical school? And do you have any tips for current pre-medical students?
So my application medical, I had a little bit of a different journey. I did take a gap year. I didn't apply my junior year, which I think is still how it goes. You apply junior year to then get accepted after senior year, right?
Actually, a lot of students have started to take gap years, maybe two. Right now, a lot of students start to apply to medical school during their gap year, um,
Mm.
because of how long the process is. But yeah, I mean, I do know someone who's applying as a junior right now. I believe that's the most traditional
Yeah,
method.
but that's you have to apply junior year if you're gonna go straight after college still,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
exactly. Yes, yeah.
So I didn't apply my junior year. I took my MCAT, I think at the end of junior year. I don't remember exactly when. But I do know I didn't apply junior year, so I knew I was taking a gap year. So for my gap year, I mean, being in New York, you have so many volunteer opportunities that you can do. I mean, I already had a lot of that. Because being in Macaulay gives you so many opportunities and so many ways to put things on your resume. So I didn't need much more in that sense, but I wanted to kind of see if medical school really was what I wanted to do. It was more studying. Macaulay is already, doing pre-med at Hunter is already hard and it's already tough. And I was like, am I really going to continue to do this? So I did a master's of science in medical science, which was taking pre-medical course, well, no, not pre-medical, medical courses, the same courses that the medical students would be taking. And it was a 2-year program that it basically immerses you basically in a baby medical school almost, but it's basically the same courses. So I did that for my gap year, but I did apply my senior year. I had my final MCAT the summer of my senior year, so I applied for that, and I ended up getting accepted actually. So I didn't finish the 2 years; I only did 1 year. So I got in. I was lucky, and it was a hard journey, but I got in. And then it took a lot of connections, I would say, because while you're doing the Master of Science Medical Science program, you can connect with the actual faculty that work at the medical school. So I had recommendations from them. I knew them. So when I was applying to Indiana University School of Medicine, which is where I did my Master's of Science, I knew them. I knew the office, the faculty. I also applied to all over. I applied in New York as well. I had many interviews. I think it really helped my application because I was taking these courses and saying, yes, I want to continue. And I was showing that I could do well in these courses. So I got accepted to, I remember which school, I think it was SUNY Upstate. But I got accepted to a couple schools. I really wanted to go to Indiana University because I guess my boyfriend at the time was getting his PhD at Purdue University in Indiana. So I was like, we were there together. And so I decided to stay in Indiana. He's not my husband, so it worked out. But I then canceled all the rest of my interviews to give other people opportunities because interviews are hard to go by. So I canceled them to give other people opportunities. I accepted Indiana. And then I did eventually get into medical school. So I finished college, I did 1 year of the master's program, and then I started medical school. So I would say that my tip for current college students is to not worry that you're not going to go straight through. Remember that there's so many different things that you could do to help boost your resume. And if you are not 100% sure that you want to go to medical school and basically devote your life to working hard, taking tests, and really struggling, then you can take these courses. There's a DO one, I think Thoreau and Uptown. There's a lot of them all over the country, and they will help you understand that yes, this is what you want to do, but they'll also, if it is what you end up choosing, they'll also help give you the connections you might need to get into medical school.
Right. I mean, yeah, those seem like amazing programs. I've never really heard of it's a master's in medical science, right?
Masters of Science in Medical Science, MSMS basically for short. There are a
MSM.
lot of master's programs. There are also, I forgot what they were called, but there are these other programs. It's not a master's, but there are other similar programs where you can take classes that are similar to the classes in medical students would be taking. But my thinking was I would do the master's because it's a 2-year program. And if I didn't get into medical school that first year, at least I would fall back on another year of the master's program and at least get my master's.
Right.
Where some of the other programs, you're just taking classes and you don't necessarily get a master's or anything. So
Right.
I chose that. Indiana was a little weird, but since my boyfriend at the time was doing a program there, I learned about it. And I was like, wow, this actually was a really good program and it had great reviews. And it was also focused on the minority community. I would say that the majority of the people in my class were either Black or Hispanic. And the ones that weren't were definitely from lower socioeconomic backgrounds.
Got it. Yes. So that seemed like an amazing program, and it seems to have set you up for great success. And I think later on I'll ask you this question, but just sort of something I guess you can keep in mind is I'm really curious in knowing how that transition from Hunter, New York City, like a metropolitan area, was to Indiana. So
Yeah.
I'll ask that question later when we get more into your gap year. But next up, I did want to talk about Hunter College specifically.
Mhm.
How was your time at Hunter? Specifically as a pre-medical student. I guess this is me more asking about the classes you took, the people that you were with. Just how was your undergraduate career overall as a Hunter student specifically?
As a 100 student specifically, I would say it's really hard. I mean, if you already probably took the bio,
Yeah.
um, giant lecture hall, the first time you walk in and you're like, what is this? And how the rows are just filled all the way to the top, and you're looking up and you're like, is this like a concert? It was a lot of people. And then kind of by the end of the semester, you see that it's less. So getting through the weed out courses, I would say it was a struggle. I had to work hard, learning about the curve, trying to beat the curve, whether or not you show up to class, but still studying before the test and making sure you get all the right resources was definitely something I needed to learn to navigate. Um, but I enjoyed it in terms of the material I was learning. I was never the top student, but I always met the Macaulay GPA. And I got through it by working with others as well. So, I mean, I feel like in my year there were a lot of pre-medical students. Is that the same?
Yes, very much. Specifically in Macaulay. Yes, very
Yes,
much. Yeah.
yes. I mean, I would say a lot of the people I was hanging out with were Macaulay pre-med students. And so, I mean, I think that making friends with everyone and studying together was a nice thing to do because then I had support, and we were all kind of sad together. Um, and also when we made friends with people in this kind of in this group, then we can get previous tests from previous years and just like more information and more resources that can help you do better.
Mm, right. Okay. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I've also started to kind of notice this as well as a Hunter student. It's definitely hard. It's definitely difficult, but I mean, you got through it. So congratulations to that, as
You
well.
will. If this is what you want to do, if you work hard and just continue on, it'll be fine.
Right.
It'll be
Yeah.
fine. I feel like if I could do it, anyone can do it.
Yeah, yeah, I mean that's inspirational right there, knowing that, specifically Macaulay, I know puts a lot of pressure on you having to like get all A's, get all A pluses and maintain that 4.0 GPA. But I mean like
So hard when you're pre-med and you're in a class with 800 other people, and like sometimes a lot of those people are going to be better than you. I mean, you can't always be the top. I feel like when you get into Macaulay, you are the top. And then once you go and you're with 900 other students in a same room, you're like, oh, I guess I'm not so much anymore. And some people are, which is amazing. But that just wasn't the case for me. I was very much in the middle all the time. Um, but it was fine. I never failed, and I got through it. I would say that definitely also one thing that helps you stand out is going to the office hours. I know it's harder to make the time to go to that extra time and meet the professor, but it really does help when you're at that borderline and the professor knows that you've been trying and you've been at least trying to get to know their subject and their materials and you show up. So they know you. Like out of 100, 800 people, sometimes they're not going to know. I mean, most of the time they're not going to know everyone, but they will know you if you show up because not so many people do. So I think that also helps a lot.
No, yeah, I mean that's very true. Office hours is a very, very popular like method in terms of getting to know your professors and kind of, getting feeling more confident in the content of the classes here at Hunter. So yeah, I mean 100% can see how office hours are super helpful. And also kind of gives me a relief too to know, I'm not a top Macaulay honor student either. My grades have kind of, a little bit of a dip. But
Hard.
yeah, it's hard, definitely hard, but, being able to see that it's still possible is definitely really helpful, so yeah. And, I wanted to also kinda hone in more on Macaulay. Specifically, it's the honors program, it's the one of the top honors program in the country, I guess you can say.
Mhm.
So I really wanted to ask, how did Macaulay Honors specifically support you on your medical journey?
The advising. I mean, I had Charlotte Glasser, who is now retired, unfortunately for you guys, but she was amazing. And being Macaulay, you get to sign up before everyone else for the courses. And I just remember having other friends who were not in honors program or some program that gave you early sign up. And sometimes they wouldn't get their courses that they needed for whatever they were choosing to do. And that's so hard to see, like, people struggling that for them to go through that. But thankfully, as a Macaulay student, you shouldn't have to go through that. So I would always map out, I would meet with early with my advisor. And I would map out basically the year. I'm like, I'm taking these courses, I'm doing these winter classes. I took winter courses always, which were, I think they're still free. I don't know, they were free for me at that time. And so I would do like the silly subjects during the winter. Like I took the fun courses. I took a German fairy tales course. Meet the prerequisites with the most fun classes with the least amount of time. And by going through kind of the course catalog and hearing about classes my advisor had heard other people had took that met certain requirements and prerequisites, getting that all on paper or on a computer or whatever, and just mapping it out, and then being able to just put your classes in and press enter and get them was invaluable. Like I didn't have to worry that I wasn't going to get the course I wanted. Sometimes you don't get the time you want because you're against other Macaulay students too, but you have schedule A, schedule B with all the possibilities, and you can usually make it work out. And the advising from freshman year until senior year was always amazing. She was always very supportive. Then I transitioned to Camille, and I had her for a little bit at the end. Since I wasn't going, I kind of got my medical school application ready, but then I didn't apply. So I kind of just had it there pending. But even after I graduated, they helped me. They helped me make my application. They were so nice. They corrected my personal statements. They corrected my resume. You have the pre-med office as well, but they're so busy. Like half of Hunter is applying.
Yeah.
So when you have that small unit that's really supporting you and trying to get you there and helping you achieve what you want to achieve, I think it just makes it so much easier, almost like someone holding your hand and taking you to what you need to do.
Yeah, I mean, I can echo that as well. How it's almost impossible to like be a pre-med student without the proper advising, without the proper advice to really know what classes am I supposed to take, when am I supposed to take these classes in order for me to not just be on track to be to apply to medical school, but also be on track to graduate as well. You know, just even those basic requirements of being an undergraduate student. You know, so yeah, I mean, it's good to know that even then, you know, Macaulay was really supportive, and it still is, from what I know of.
Yeah.
It still is really supportive. So yeah, can definitely echo that. So now I kind of want to lead into your gap year, the specifically the master's program. So yeah, I mean, how did that specifically, I guess, if you want to elaborate more, help you not just to get into medical school, but I know sometimes gap year experiences can also help people on their medical journeys as well. You know, kind of like, like shape them into a certain like way of becoming a doctor, or maybe help them gain certain like studying skills. So how did that experience help you overall?
Okay. Well, I mean, it definitely helped me get into medical school. But in terms of becoming a better student, I mean, I would say like it definitely helped me in my first year of medical school because I had already seen the material once. And for someone who was not the top student and was then going through the challenge of medical school, I would say that really helped me, because I had already seen a lot of the material. It wasn't the same courses, exactly. Like this master's program I found online, I applied, you have to interview. So I flew to Indiana. I remember I applied during one of my psych courses. It popped up. I At the time, my boyfriend, he was like, I'm probably going to go to Indiana to Purdue University to get my PhD in analytical chemistry. I'm like, I don't know what that is. Good luck to you. I'm going to be in New York figuring out my life. Well, I was Googling master's programs, things to do during gap years. And then I saw that this was one of the options. And I was like, no way, it's in Indiana. That's crazy. I'm like, I never even thought of Indiana in my life before. So I looked at it and I saw that it had a really high acceptance rate into medical school. I also applied to the Thoreau program in Harlem. So I applied to both. I got interviews for both. I just like that Terrell is the DO program and MSMS was the MD program for Indiana. So I chose to go there. Um, it was just more of a larger academic institution. So I felt like I'd have a lot more resources and I would get to know more people that I feel like their recommendations anywhere across the country would help me a little more. I don't know if that's true. That's just how I decided to make my decision. I think Turo would also be a good option. So I once you get there, they give you basically a summer intensive course for preparing you for the MCAT. So I applied in March, I interviewed in April. I think we started in June, I want to say. So literally I graduated in Macaulay, did my graduations, and then I flew to Indiana and moved there. And then the whole summer, I think it was 2 months, I want to say, I'm not 100% sure on the timeline, was just basically MCAT courses, MCAT lectures, practice tests, took the MCAT. I don't remember my score, but it was, I guess, enough to get me in. And then you go right into the courses. I think I took biochemistry, I took human anatomy, physiology, I'm sure other courses. And those were the same basically lectures and courses and teachers that were teaching the medical students. So it gave me a grasp on that material. You have to also maintain a certain GPA to stay in the master's program. I did. And then I applied that year, which you can choose to continue the master's and not apply or apply. I chose to apply. And then I interviewed with that medical school, which was Indiana. I interviewed with a couple medical schools in New York, but I had decided that I really liked the people I had met in Indiana. And since I was already there and my boyfriend was finishing his PhD, we decided to just stay there. And then since it was the same, so basically Indiana works in a different way that any other medical school does. They have 9 campuses across the state, but it's still one medical school. So I started off my master's program in one city, and then when I started medical school, I went to a different city. So it wasn't the exact same courses or same lecturers that I had been with throughout my master's program. So I basically started again, but it was similar information. I had done it once, and I think that helped me to do better and to compete with my other fellow medical students and keep me afloat, because they also have you have to pass a certain number of times to stay in medical school, or else you get on probation, and then it basically never ends. The Macaulay kind of style rules and regulations continue if you continue on higher education and grad school and everything after that. So it kind of prepares you to be ready for that kind of lifestyle, always meeting the requirements, doing better, and always doing your best.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I've started to notice like a trend in the sense that you seem to be very academically involved, which I assume definitely must have helped you a lot in medical school. Especially knowing that the hardest part of medical school is the academics, I can only assume, right? So I mean, it's good to know how both Macaulay and the master's program was able to prepare you for medical school and also gave you that huge boost in applying to medical school, because basically you already took the classes, you know? So it's like, yeah, they're
Yeah.
like, you can definitely handle this, you know, but
So I mean, when I was graduating college and I'm showing them like, this is my GPA, I don't remember what it was. I know it was above a 3.5. I'm not 100% sure. I think it was not 100% sure. So don't quote me on that. So it wasn't like a 4.0 GPA, which people are sometimes applying to. So I'm not like competing against those guys.
mm,
But then I go and take this master's course. I pass all my courses. I do well in all my courses. So then I can show like I'm not like the best, but you know what? I can do it. So if you get me into medical school, this is how I've proven myself. And then I had all my extracurriculars and everything that I had already done throughout college.
and you proved yourself, so congratulations. Yeah. So, so yeah, you got through the daunting pre-med experience. You got through applying to medical school, which is even more daunting. So now you're in medical school. I mean, not well, not now, but like you just arrived in medical school. So I wanted to ask, how was your medical school experience specifically? Was it different from undergrad? Was there any similarities that overlapped? How was your experience overall?
So in college, you study on your own, and everything is basically on your own. In medical school, it's the same, except you get like triple the amount of information. Um, you get you mean chapters on chapters and chapters information, then tomorrow's your test on it. It's just so much to absorb. And it was again tough. Like I've always struggled with my tests, and I've never failed, thankfully, but I've not always done the best. And so it was hard. Still continued to be hard after that first year. I'm like, okay, well now I have to get new material that I wasn't exposed to and start from the beginning. And I got through it, but it's always hard. It's a constant fight with another test and another thing to pass. Um, I would say that my support system was really good. My family would visit me a lot in the middle of nowhere, Indiana. But Indiana itself had really supportive faculty. And they also, if you were struggling or you needed help, they were very quick to offer, and they never made you feel bad about it. I would say I was in a very friendly campus of the 9 campuses that I had told you about, and everyone supported each other. We all studied. If someone was struggling, we would share materials a lot. Like, oh, this helped me. The upperclassmen would help too. It was great. It was great to be around people that were kind, and you're not really competing against people to Macaulay, you're competing against people to get into medical school. Once you're in medical school, you're all going to do different things. So you're not really competing to try to do better and make sure that you do better than the other person. It's everyone can do better, and everyone can do well together. So it was very familial.
Wow. Okay. That's good to know that there's not that.
Depends on where you are. That was my experience, but I know it can be different in other places.
True. Yeah. I mean, I can definitely echo it is very competitive. I assume in pre-med anywhere you go, it's going to be really competitive.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, it's good to know that for your experience specifically, that it was more of a familial, and it should be because you're all saving lives, so it shouldn't be a competition. In the end, there's one goal, and it's to help better the world, some way, somehow. So that's really amazing to know that that
And in
was
medical school, as long as you pass, you're a doctor at the end. So it doesn't matter. Just get to the pass.
right. That's a good mindset to keep in mind once we get to that step.
It's not the best, but that was mine.
I mean, if it worked for you, who says it doesn't work for anyone else, right? So usually, Camille usually gives me people to interview who were really successful on their med school journey. However, I know that there could definitely be challenges on that road. Either if it's applying to medical school, applying to residency, or in medical school, or in residency, undergrad, wherever. So I just wanted to ask, did you face any challenges on your medical journey? And if so, how did you overcome those challenges?
Well, I mean, I think I definitely felt like it was the end of the world when I had decided I wasn't going to apply straight after, like to go straight to medical school. When I realized I was taking a gap year, I thought it was the end. Like I had planned always take my courses, pass, do okay, apply to medical school, get into medical school. Now I'm taking a gap year, and now I'm going to Indiana in the middle of nowhere. Or I mean, it is in the middle of nowhere, but it definitely was, I think, the best thing for me. Like I was in the middle of nowhere, but you know what? That means I'm not going out in Manhattan all the time. That means I am studying. That means I'm very immersed in what I need to be doing. So for me, I think the challenge was adjusting and figuring out what I was going to do during my gap year, um, and realizing it's not the end of the world. Having a gap year was actually really nice, um, and it really didn't put me back so much. So I know a lot of people when you're in college, you expect that you're going to go through all the way, and that does feel like the end of the world when all of a sudden you're not. Um, but it'll be okay.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I've heard from some people, I forgot who, but someone gave me this quote that like no one regrets taking a gap year, but people regret not taking a gap year, you know. So, I mean, now it's starting to become more common, more of like the standard to take a gap year because
Which is very different from when I was there.
yeah, I mean, I know like when I came into college, I thought it was kind of like going from high school to college where you apply
Mhm.
directly to get into med school. But you know, it's good to know that the standard is to basically because med school is going to be really hard, and after once you're in medical school, most of the time you dedicate the rest of your life to that
You
specific
have no life.
right. So I mean, I think a gap year not only allows you to gain opportunities for applying, but also kind of gives you that break and end quote to kind of like enjoy, not enjoy your life before it all goes down, but like to enjoy what you can, you know, the free time that you can, you know, tend to take before you start to dedicate your life to this certain career path choice that you've chosen. So I do highly respect gap years, and it's really good to see that you're an example of how it's successful a gap year could be. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, overall, you know, this entire interview has been talking about, you know, the academic side, the extracurricular side, you know, overall, just applying to medical school, all the boring stuff, right? So I just wanted to know on this long and tough journey, have you found time to do things that you love, you know, like hobbies or hanging out with friends, you know?
I love travel. So I started in college when I went on a medical, I used the Opportunities Fund to go on a medical trip to Peru. I worked in clinics there. Um, and I mean, I also got to do some exploring of Peru and Cusco and Machu Picchu, and it was great. It was basically an immersive month that I was in the clinics there. Um, so that was great. And I continued that into medical school. I went on 2 trips. I went on one medical trip to Nicaragua, where we went and visited mothers in their maternal units there. And then we helped build a school, fortify. We helped fortify a school in Nicaragua. And then my senior year of medical school, I went to Tanzania, and I also worked in a hospital there. So that was a lot of fun. It was definitely still school related, but um, travel, which I April that I'm going to Indiana, I had to learn how to drive. And so I had to figure out how to get my license. I remember driving around the park in Brooklyn, being this guy was for me. But I learned, got my license, and then once I was in Indiana, there are bigger roads, not so many people trying to kill you all the time, except for trucks.
Oh.
They try to smash you, but um, you can use the big open roads. And so I've never been here before. So I visited a lot of the states around Indiana, Chicago, Illinois. I was there a lot. It was like a baby New York. When I missed home, it was definitely nice to just go to a bigger city. Exploring Indiana itself. Uh, we went to Nashville, Tennessee, St. Louis, Missouri, um, Louisville, Kentucky, Ohio, Cedar Point, the amusement parks there. And we did a lot of the drive because I was on scholarship and my husband was on his small PhD salary, so we couldn't afford to fly all the time. So we would do the 13-hour drive back and forth from Indiana to New York a lot.
Wow. So
That
you've
was
been all over?
what?
So you've been all over. Kind
Yeah,
of.
I mean, I took advantage because while I was there, I mean, I couldn't really fly anywhere. I couldn't come to New York all the time to do that 13-hour drive. I couldn't really afford anything. So we're like, what can we do? We can take a weekend drive to any of the places around there, and things are pretty cheap in the Midwest, which is definitely amazing to experience,
Mm.
considering I was in the Macaulay dorms trying to pay for my food and going to the supermarket and being like, how can I eat today? And then I was in Indiana and I was like, wow, this 5 gallon bottle of milk is where it was like plus dollars in New York was $2. I'm like, this is crazy.
Wow.
So we definitely took the opportunity to travel and just explore an area of the United States that we had not been to.
Wow. I think I might move to Indiana if it's $2. Jesus Christ.
It was cheap. It was real.
And I understand that 13-hour road trip. I mean, my mom and I, we used to take a road trip to Tennessee from New York City, and God, those road trips were long, but I mean, like, it must have been really joyful to like see the scenery, environments, just getting out of the bubble of New York City, you know. So
I didn't expect it to be. I was always New York or no way. Born and raised. I was like, I'm going to New York Medical School. I'm going to Toronto for my master's. I'm doing everything here. But then when I went to visit Indiana University and I saw just how massive it was and the amount of resources they had and how open, I was like, oh, I might have to actually, this might be better for me, overall. And so my mom was supportive, my family was supportive. I did it and I gained so many invaluable experiences that I never would have had I stayed in New York, I have to say.
okay, that's good to know because my mindset right now is I was also born and raised in New York. I'm going to stay in New York for the rest of my life. So
I think it's important to keep an open mind, apply broad, apply everywhere, because you really will be surprised by what you can find. I mean, it's medical school. You're not doing anything, you're not doing too many fun things in medical school anyway. Like, you're studying. You don't really need to be in New York and have all these opportunities that you're not going to be able to take advantage of.
that's very true. Thank you for that tip. So again, just going over your journey. I mean, you finished medical school, you graduated from medical school, so congratulations on that. That's a really huge achievement. You earned that doctor title. I know that must have been felt really good putting that in front of your name. Uh,
It was good. It was during COVID, so it was really underwhelming.
oh,
They were basically just like, please, everyone, go home. And then they were like, congratulations, you finished medical school. And we were like with our COVID mask, like not leaving the house, watching our Zoom graduation. It was so sad.
oh, I'm sorry. Well, I mean, hopefully your residency graduation will be in person.
It happened already. It was great.
Yeah.
It definitely felt like it almost felt like my first medical kind of achievement ever, because medical school graduation kind of, we just moved and started residency. So it really didn't feel like anything happened, and it made it so much more real.
Right. And that actually helps me lead into my next question, which is going to talk about residency. So actually, every person I've ever interviewed were just in residency or in medical school, but you've graduated residency, you've gone through it. So now I can ask the question of how was residency and overall as an experience?
So I would say applying to medical school was definitely the hardest thing, because you don't know if you're going to get in.
Right.
And then once you're in medical school, the challenges of going and going and going. Applying to residency was definitely easier. Um, you already chose your specialty. It's still scary because you don't know if you're going to get into residency, but if you don't, you're still a doctor, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I have to do a year of research and figure things out and then apply to residency again. As long as you keep at it, you're more likely going to get into residency. Whereas medical school, sometimes you don't know, right? It's it's tough, but thankfully it was much easier to apply to residency. Then residency has its own challenges. Medical school, it's, are you going to pass the test? Are you going to pass the test? If you don't pass the test, you can't continue on and you're going to get kicked out of medical school. Then residency, you can't sleep. Um, I did OBGYN residency. So I did surgery. So you do C-sections, you do normal deliveries, you do GYN surgery, hysterectomies, AP repair, a bunch of different vaginal surgeries, and abdominal surgeries. But it's also 24-hour shifts because it's a surgical specialty. Some places don't have 24-hour shifts, but OBGYN did. So I was doing 24s, at least 1 to 2 a month, along with at least a 12 to 14-hour work day. So it's about 80 hours plus a week on average. So it is just kind of a stamina game. But at that point, I'm doing what I love. I'm delivering babies, I'm doing surgery. It is definitely tough kind of as a stamina mental thing because you're learning so much and the learning curve is even steeper. Like medical school, the learning curve is getting information in your head and all the book stuff in there. And then residency, it's actually doing it and then applying that book stuff to actual people. And then if you do it wrong, they could die.
Right.
So that was something to get used to. It's very, very stressful. So much sleep is missing. But again, I mean, I was doing what I love. I'm doing what I love. So I think it's rewarding to actually be able to treat patients and be with patients and do what you choose to do with patients. And I think that makes it so rewarding.
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, that makes me really happy to hear that you're able to do what you love. Like, even though it's really hard, you're still doing something that you enjoy. And I mean, I'm assuming that is the purpose of residency, right?
Mhm.
You shouldn't be in a residency that you don't enjoy doing because that's literally the rest of your life right there.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, an OBGYN is one of the more harder lifestyles, I would say, but I can't imagine myself doing anything else. I think about doing any other specialty, and I'm just so happy that I chose OBGYN because it is, even though it's hard and it's taxing and you don't sleep and babies come whenever they want. And some of my friends are doing call, which is their 24-hour shift, and they're sleeping the whole time. And I am just listening to women yelling all night with no sleep. But in the end, I got to help them have their baby and I got to be a part of a really important part of their life. And that made me really happy. And then, when you go from intern year to second year to third year to fourth year, starting as an intern, you know nothing. You go in because, all you know at that point is books. So I know how a baby is supposed to be born. I know where a C-section occurs. Now you have to find where the knife is. You have to find where the bathroom is. You have to learn how to press all these buttons on the computer. And like, there's a button that you have to press on the computer. It says patient can go to the bathroom. Like everything is controlled and you have to learn how to control it. So it's a whole other experience and a whole other just part of learning. And then second year, you get to do more and people respect you a little more because you know a little more, but then you're still a junior resident. So you're not expected to know everything. Then third year, you have more responsibility. You have more management. You're expected to know more. And so I feel like you get in trouble more because you are responsible for the team. And so we always had the mindset that like the fourth years and the third years are responsible for the first and second years. So if something happens with your team, even if it was, the first year that did it, it's still on you because you are the leader of the team. And so just kind of learning to take more responsibility, learning how to manage people and learning how to do oversight and not like if someone's not doing something right, it's not the appropriate thing to just do it for them. You have to teach them. So it's kind of a lot of balance of teaching and oversight and being fair as you go in residency and go up in the years. And then there's fourth year, which is chief year, which I literally just did my last surgery today. And you are taking a step back, letting everyone else handle everything. But I was the admin chief, so I was in charge of the schedule. I was in charge of making sure everyone was going to the conferences that they were supposed to for the fellowships that they wanted to go into, because there's after residency, it doesn't end if you don't want it to. There's still fellowship possibilities. I am not doing fellowship, but there are others who were. And so I was in charge of making sure everyone was meeting the requirements. Everyone is publishing the research that they need to publish, getting the papers in that they need to get in. And that's more of like a fourth year in my residency. That was our role. But I think most fourth years are more in the management and helping. So like if there's an emergency, you have to come and you run it because you're the highest resident. So you are the one who's gonna do all the more challenging cases, all the more difficult things, and help with all of the complications.
Well, first off, congratulations on your last surgery for residency. I mean, that must be
It was great. I got to do a hysterectomy, which was removing the uterus. That's a very common GYN procedure. And it was a more difficult case, but we still did it in like very good time. And that's why I was a little worried, but we started around like 11:30, 12 o'clock, and we were out by like 2 o'clock. So I was like, okay.
And you made it, so congratulations. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
And also, I mean, thank you for laying out the entire like 4 years. I mean, that's something that, I mean, a lot of people, especially pre-med students, I mean, who know like what they want to do already, once getting into med school and residency, they don't know what actually residency is, so thank you for laying that out and kind of noticing like once there's more responsibility as you continue to move up, so
Mhm.
I mean, that's also
Yeah.
something to really consider if you're going into the field of medicine is there's a ton of responsibility on you.
Mhm. So much. I mean, you're always working with your attendings and they're always there helping you, but you're learning. So your goal is to be able to do it without them. They're always going to be there with you. They have to.
Right.
But your goal is to kind of have them in the back and you be able to do it. And they only come in if like something crazy is happening. But um that's kind of all part of learning. Like you want to do everything you can and see every single case you can in residency so that when you're on your own, you know how to deal with it. And I mean, I just remember intern year when me and my co-residents started, one of the major things of OBGYN, like the bread and butter, is learning to check a patient's cervical dilation. So you have to check vaginally and you put your 2 fingers in to find their cervix. And I remember the first couple of months, we just all looked at each other like, did you find the cervix? No. Did you find the cervix? No. It's like, me neither. Oh, okay. Well, try again tomorrow. So, I mean, just everything is learning. And it's crazy how doctors go from like studying to all of a sudden you come to residency and you are a doctor and you are responsible for all these things that you don't know how to do. But the point is to learn how to do it. And I think the way it's laid out, which whatever number of years the residency is, it's always learn, then a little bit more management, and then a little bit more responsibility, and then being in charge.
Right. Okay. Well, you made it through it all. So congratulations. Hopefully you did manage to find the cervix in the end.
I mean, yes, thankfully, I don't think I would have been able to finish that first year. It would not have let me go forward.
Well, now you're moving forward and you're going to become an OBGYN provider, correct? I wanted to talk more about, you said that you are a National Health Service Corps scholar, um,
Mhm.
and that you will be working in specifically a medically underserved area of the country for 4 years after your residency. And,
Mhm.
and it was in exchange for covering your medical school tuition, correct?
Mhm. Yes. So before medical school started, I heard about this program called the National Health Service Corps. And I learned that you can apply for it pending you get accepted to medical school. So I applied for basically at the same time I applied for medical school. And then a lot of the criteria is also similar to the master's program I applied to, where you had to either be part of a medically underserved area, have a minority background. I'm not sure if it's exactly you have to be, but that's kind of one of a lot of the questions that they have you write essays on is based off of those categories. And so I applied, I got accepted. And so what that meant was they covered, it was almost like another little Macaulay. So they covered my tuition for medical school and they gave me a monthly stipend for living expenses. And in return for that, for the 4 years since I got accepted to medical school, and then they covered 4 years of it, I have to pay back 4 years to medically underserved area of the country. So they have a database where they have all the places that meet certain criteria. When you graduate residency, you get a number, and that number determines how underserved the place will be. My number was very high, which put me in more rural areas. And so the place that was closest to home that had a big enough practice that I would feel supported in was in North Carolina. So I'll be going to Fayetteville, North Carolina, and that it's they need more doctors there, and that's what medically underserved is. So they need more doctors, and I'm going to be part of their program as a OB provider there. I'll be an attending. I'll have my own residence. and I'll be doing that for 4 years.
Oh, well, congratulations on being and attending. I mean, that's it. That's the hugest accomplishment.
I
Uh,
mean, I haven't done it yet, but that'll be starting in October.
wow. How do you feel? I mean, this is literally the goal. I mean, you've made it. So like how is it? How does that
It
feel?
it feels unreal. I mean, it feels so unreal. I still have loans because the master's program wasn't free. So I have loans from that. And then they covered most things, but my family couldn't help me pay for rent or really anything throughout medical school. So I also took out a small amount of loans for that. So I do have loans, not so much, thankfully, as much as a uh, full medical school pathway if I had to pay for it would have cost. But I still have a little bit, so it'll be nice to be able to pay that off. And it's nice that I have a job. Finally, I haven't had a really. I mean, residency is a job. Definitely, you get paid, but like not definitely not enough for the hours that you work. So to actually be compensated for the hours you work will be very nice for the first time in my life. I am afraid still because I mean, this is going to be the first time that I am actually by myself. No more attending, helping me out in the back if I do something bad as a resident or if I make a mistake, or telling me like, oh, don't go there because that's not where you're supposed to go. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. And then you switch things up. Now it's me. Now I just have to know where to go and I have to know how to do things. So it's going to be very scary. I think that's what makes me most nervous. And I did go to Indiana already, so that was experience leaving New York, but now I'm doing it again,
Mm,
which like I can't believe I'm leaving New York again, but here we are.
right. Well, I mean, I am very confident that I mean you were able to get through everything. I mean, so I think you'll be able to get through that too.
I
And
hope so.
I mean, and that will also prepare you, I mean, for the rest of your life too. Well, I mean, being an attending, you're at the top. So, um, yeah. So thank you for providing that view of it because and I know a lot of pre-med students here at Hunter want to know that end goal. I mean, we always like kind of don't really talk about it as much. We talk about like just getting into med school, just worrying
Yes,
about that.
yes. Because I mean, that's the hardest part, honestly. Getting into medical school is the hardest part.
Yeah, true. But I think it's also important to highlight what's the final goal in the end. So thank you for breaking, being the first person to really show that. And overall, those are all the questions I have on my end. I just wanted to first say thank you so much for volunteering your time, but also thank you so much for your service as an OBGYN. I mean, it's a very underappreciated field of medicine. Not only are you saving lives, but you're also bringing lives into the world. So,
Yeah, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah. So, I mean, yeah,
I mean, I just Macaulay, New Yorkers, we all want to stay in New York, and New York is the best place in the world for sure. From all my travels, definitely. But I think always keeping in mind that there are other places and you will be okay if you leave New York. There are just so many opportunities, and a lot of other medical schools and other places will also support you. I mean,
yeah,
of course, you have NYU, Columbia, like all the amazing schools here. But I mean, if you're not a 4.0 GPA and like, if you're realistic with yourself and you don't think that you can necessarily get there, some people can, and that's amazing. It's okay to go other places.
right.
And they do have amazing opportunities in other places. Like Indiana was amazing. They had everything I could ever want. They funded my medical trip. They had scholarships for everything. They were very nice. They got me into residency. I hope that North Carolina is just as supportive. I don't know yet. I feel like I'm almost going to almost like another residency because it's another 4 years of learning in another place that I've never been to. But I'm open to the experience. It's cheaper again, so I'm excited for that. And the weather is nicer. So I mean, just there's so many positives in going different places. And I've always been, I grew up New York, New York, New York, but really changing the mindset that there are opportunities in other places, I think would be my biggest tip to medical students because I feel like a lot of the times we're studying and we're trying to get through all the weed out courses and we're like, okay, if I do well, then I can apply to Columbia and I can stay in New York and everything's going to be amazing. And for some people, that's great, but not everyone can do that. But there's so many other medical schools and there's so many other great opportunities. Just remember that you can always find another opportunity.
Well, thank you for sharing that piece of advice to us scary New Yorkers. So yeah, that's definitely something that is not really talked about enough, is that, you don't have to always, shoot for those top, programs. That any medical program will really help you get to where you need to
Mhm.
be. Yeah,
You'll
thank
still be
you.
a doctor. So
Yeah. The end goal is to be a doctor. It's not where you get the degree from. It's just matters that'll take you to where you need. So yeah.
yeah, I mean, and a lot of other places have really top programs. Indiana was really good. So
Yeah.
I have to just appreciate them, and definitely advising definitely helped me understand that. I was like, no, I need to stay in New York. And they were like, maybe you don't. And so I was like, okay, let me try.
Well, I've never said this in my life, but shout out to Indiana.
Yeah, I know, right? Who would have thought?
Yeah. So yeah, that's it for me. Thank you so much. It was amazing speaking to you today. Thank you for sharing all these experiences. I know a lot of pre-med students are going to be tuning in to this episode.
Well,
Uh,
hello, everyone.
yes. So overall, yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Yes, you as well. Bye.